Hello and welcome to Midwest Writers Room. Our mission is to encourage, educate, and celebrate writers of the Midwest. I'm Luella Schmidt.
And I'm Ken Humphrey. Today we're interviewing Corey Geiger.
A sixth-generation farmer, Corey is the author of two award-winning books, On a Wisconsin Family Farm and The Wisconsin Farm They Built, that have won 4 national writing awards and sold copies in all 50 U.S. states. A unique and adventurous individual, Corey and his wife Krista have won their division as an amateur couple at the Fred Astaire National Finals and appeared on Family Feud with Steve Harvey. Oh, Ken, we're going to have so much fun today.
Oh, Lord, yes. So after graduating from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a degree in agricultural economics and dairy science, Corey embarked on a 28-year editorial career at Hoard's Dairyman, an international business-to-business magazine published in English, Chinese, Spanish, and Portuguese. These days, Corey is a lead dairy economist for CoBank, one of the largest providers of credit to U.S. agriculture.
We are lucky and honored to welcome Corey Geiger to Midwest Writers Room. How are you doing today, Corey?
I'm doing very well, Luella and Ken. Thank you for having me on.
You
Thanks
bet.
for coming on. So before we dive into anything writing related, I don't know what I need to know more. The dance you use for the Fred Astaire finals, or is Steve Harvey's mustache real?
I can tell you that Steve Harvey's mustache is real, and he is a sincere, authentic comedian. The episode that we recorded took 2 hours and 20 minutes. So he's like a yo-yo. He tells you stories, and then all of a sudden, hey, Ken, we asked 100 married men, what would you rather do with your mother than your spouse? And you got 3 seconds, no notes, no electronic devices. And that is how they make their magic on Family Feud.
And just the way I mean, I don't really watch Family Feud. I see clips here and there, but the way he just deadpans that look when he gets a really ridiculous answer, I mean, that's worth its weight in gold right there.
Well, one of the questions, and sometimes you're just staring in the lights. Our episode started recording at 9 p.m. We had been in the Atlantic Center, Atlanta Center and downtown recording, and you're kind of in a double wide trailer being sequestered. They run it like a Las Vegas gaming show, so you couldn't interact with anyone or anything. I mean, we even had people escorting us to the bathroom and would wait till we came back out. But when the spotlights are on you, what would you rather do with your mom than your spouse? And we're on 2 strikes, and I say clean the garage. That not the most brilliant moment of my life.
Clean the garage is a very good answer.
But it's a safe answer, very safe answer. All right, so let's circle on to the writing part. So first off, going on the Wayback Machine, you went to school to become an economist, a dairy scientist, and then ended up being a journalist. That's not quite a very common crossover. Talk us through how that happened.
I had an internship in the summer of 1994 in Ohio. And during that summer, a lady was on maternity leave, and it was a cooperative, an agricultural cooperative, and they were looking for someone to work on the newsletter. And I'm there 1 week. I'm the intern. And one thing that's been a theme of my life, I will volunteer to try something. And that's kind of where the dancing and the Family Feud come in. So I raised my hand. I'll write some stories. So they flew me around the eastern seaboard. I was on farms in Georgia and North Carolina and up in New York. And I came back and I wrote this for about a 12-page newsletter. And my two supervisors there, it looked like a chicken gave its life. There was a lot of red on that paper. And I said, well, I didn't do very well at this. And I still remember the late Hap Allen saying, no, you did very well. You just got to brush up on your grammar. These are stories that will resonate with the audience. And he called a professor at UW-Madison, Dave Dixon, who was one of my mentor. And then another phone call gets made to Hoard's Dairyman. And lo and behold, I have an interview 15 months before I graduate. I accept the job and start working full-time on a third major, which was journalism. And the beautiful thing about that, there were 3 editors there that combined had over 120 years of journalism experience. And every page that went in that publication to this day, every editor has a chance to read it, edit it, and then those corrections go back to a point editor. And about half the stories came in from outside experts. So it was a constant writing lab.
Wow.
Man,
It sounds like it. So,
what a great first job.
yeah, no
That
kidding.
I kept for 28 years. Yeah. And
Ye-
he essentially landed up being the lead editor for the final 13 years of that journey.
Wow, that is quite the journey. So, talking about journey, it sounds like your book started out as newspaper columns. Can you kind of tell us how that arrived, how that emerged?
Well, when I grew up on a sixth generation farm, my grandma literally was born in our farmhouse. It was built in 1916. And when my parents, Generation 5, bought the farm, even though Grandpa and Grandma moved to town, they were there 4, 5, 6, and in summer 7 times a week. And as a young boy, I was either working on the farm or helping Grandpa and Grandma do something on the farm. And they could tell stories. Well, before they passed away, I kind of have a photographic memory, and I asked them questions to things I didn't understand and edited almost 100 pages of manuscripts that were just questions that were floating around. Then the farm was getting ready for the 150th anniversary, and I couldn't convince my parents to have a party in the farm, which it's a big celebration to make it that far. I mean, the average US business is just, if it makes it 3 generations, that's amazing. So I approached David Norby, who's the editor of the Brilliant News, and I said, could I write 20 columns? They'd be about our farm, but I'd weave in what was happening in our area, Wisconsin, US, the world, to bring them to life. I guess it's a process called creative nonfiction. So we agreed there were the 20 articles. They were weekly, about 1,000 words each, paired with 1 or 2 pictures. Well, they eventually sold newspaper subscriptions to 37 states from people who had moved away but heard about this column that we called the Homesteader's Hope. And 20 columns turned into 99. And I had people writing me letters and emails and locals talking to me, giving me story ideas. And along this journey, are you going to write a book? So one day I went to Ephraim in Door County and I took Post-it notes and I put all 99 columns on the wall and I just kept moving them around how they could become a book. And then I realized they were more than one book, that there were 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. And so that's how that journey began. And then there's a whole nother part of juggling, self-publishing versus going with a publisher.
Wow. That's a that's quite a, I want to say, just a very logical journey. When you lay it out like that, it makes perfect sense. Right. And never let it be said that you're unwilling to try anything. I mean, that's in the first 5 minutes of this. That's clearly evident. You'll volunteer for anything and try anything. So that's great. You have a connection in your second book to a very well-known name across the state, Jerry Apps, friend of WWA. I think a lot of people know that name. Tell us, how did that come about and what did he actually do for you?
Yeah, it started with his daughter, Susie Apps Bodilly, and she's written a few books with her father. And it was the last Saturday of September, and we were at a book fair in Westby, Wisconsin at Drangine's. And Jenna Dragine put us at the same table, and I think she intentionally did that. I had never met Susie, and we were selling books over 4 hours. And towards the end, she bought 2 of my first books, and she asked me to sign them, and I remembered signing Jerry's and his late wife Ruth to Jerry Apps to thank you for inspiring me to be a writer, author, and editor. Your inspiration has no bounds. And she took the books, and about 2 weeks later, I got an email from Jerry with a little critique about the book, and I was very flattering. I got a little teary-eyed, and it just so happened I was about 3 weeks away from sending my second book, The Wisconsin Farm They Built, to the publisher. I had it out for review, so I had uncles reviewing it for the farming part. I had some coworkers at Hoard's Dairyman who loved to read that were editing it more grammatically. My mom would read it. And so I emailed Jerry, have you ever considered writing a foreword in another author's book? And he emailed back, he goes, I'd have to read the entire manuscript. And I emailed back, this is all in accordance of about an hour. What's your address? And so about 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, I printed out the whole book. I put it in a binder and I FedExed it to Jerry. And Monday morning, about noon, he emailed back and he said, word count and due date. So he wrote what he wrote in there helped even connect some dots because everybody has a different lens of what they lived. And Jerry has lived a long life and has some unique experiences that aren't like mine.
Oh,
I love that.
it's
I love
funny.
the spirit of generosity that you find in the writing community, especially in this particular case, because what your stories were doing, Corey, is kind of helping other people remember their community, remember their past and remember where they came from and all of that. It's really sweet.
Yeah,
I think Jerry's
it-
books are so, for that genre, it brings back to life stories that maybe stuck way back in someone's head. And my books have done that in some way. It gets generations speaking. All of a sudden, it shakes a story loose, and that's that's an awesome part of books.
that was actually going to be my next point on this is, and with the rise of technology over the last several decades, farming the land, it's kind of become one of those throwback things that I don't think a lot of people think about, but clearly your books are sold in all 50 states. So it resonates with somebody out there. Why do you think that is? What are you doing to make those connections with readers?
So my wife's family was the first in the U.S. to put robots in the milk cows 25 years ago. So it's a 25th anniversary. So they have a lot of technology in their farm, but the foundation of the farm is the family. And there's multiple generations working together. And when it's like farming's like a marriage, to be honest. There's good days, there's bad days, and you always got to constantly work on it. And I think these stories in my books, and I intentionally did that, they are not a bunch of pom-poms about our family. Our family members are characters in a good novel, stuff that happened. We had bootleggers in our family. We had people that died of tuberculosis and polio. And I wrote that one came out during the COVID pandemic. So, the tragedy of a family, how you pick up. There's also fun things about it as well. And that's the whole part of farming. It, people, you don't farm to get rich, you do farm to make a living. And I think all these pieces come together, and that's what helped resonate with the reader.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds like that. That's very, very cool. All right, hang tight with us for a second, Corey. We're going to do a WWA message. Luella?
The Wisconsin Writers Association Fall Conference is almost here, coming up on October 3rd and 4th in Stevens Point. Sessions are filling fast, and this is your last chance to be part of Wisconsin's biggest gathering of writers. Connect, learn, and recharge your creative spirit. Don't miss out. Register today at wiwrite.org.
And I'll second that. As I watch these registrations come in, we are nearing capacity. And actually, not long after this episode premieres, we will be shutting down registration tickets. So don't wait. Anybody out there, if you're on the fence, sign up today. All right, back to Corey. Let's dive in a little bit into the advice aspect of your career, because clearly you've got a lot of pelts under your belt, or pelts on the wall, I should say. Pelts under your belt doesn't make sense. A lot of pelts on the wall just from your career across being an editor and then writing your books. So let's talk a little bit about what you have for advice there. For instance, you hit the 40,000 word hump, and you don't know how to get over it. What do you do in that regard to just kind of keep yourself pushing forward?
At some point, you got to like take a break and walk away. And I probably should listen to myself a little bit more often, but there, sometimes I keep my Harley around, motorcycle, just to get on it. And if I'm stuck, I'll go for a 20-minute ride. And inevitably, what'll happen, I'll have to pull over and start taking electronic notes in my phone. The, the other things, my father passed away at age 69, and we got a 400-acre farm, and people are like, why do you keep running all that ground and all that? And, but part of it is when I'm out there on that farm or on a tractor or making firewood for my mom, those are all quiet times to start thinking about how to rework a story. And oftentimes I'll have to, I can't wait to get back to my computer because my head just clears out. So that's one part of my personal journey, and everybody's different, of course, Ken.
I'm wondering if you would share a little bit more about your process. So, like what kind of software tools you use, and are you like when you're in the groove, are you like every morning I'm going to write, or are you more sporadic? What are your habits like?
Well, I have a full-time job, so that's part of this juggling. But I'll do a lot of writing in winter. If you grew up on a farm milking cows 5 a.m., that's normal wake up time. So a lot of times I will write from 5 to 10 in the morning. I'll maybe walk away. Some people, I mean, every author is different. I will let my wife literally have my laptop, and she'll come in and work over an article or a chapter two, and or just put question marks or highlight things, and just to get some instant feedback. I trust her pretty unequivocally on doing that, because I mean these are pieces of artwork as well. And then the thing I've learned, and I've had mentored over 30 interns at Hoard's Dairyman. I have some young analysts that I mentor at CoBank as well. When I look at an intern's writing, and I tell young people, if you wrote it today, please set it aside and don't look at it for a day, and then come back and edit it. And 75% of the time, they don't listen to me that first time, and I'll read the first paragraph and I'm like, oh, you wrote this today, didn't you? Because you can clean up so much of your own writing by just taking some time and reworking it. And I found a lot of joy in mentoring young people, because once they see that, it's amazing how they transform just in a 90-day window to become a writer. So I use those practices myself. It really cleans up the copy a lot quicker than people would imagine.
That's good advice. I often get impatient myself. I had to learn that to let myself rest a little bit and come back to it with fresh eyes. It really does make all the difference.
And if I'm struggling with a piece, I used to write 60 editorials a year too for Hoard's Dairyman, kind of Wall Street Journal kind of business editorials. And some piece that you really want to drive a point home, I read them out loud even. I know it takes more time,
Yeah.
but when you stand anywhere and have to read that out loud, all of a sudden oh my word, that doesn't make quite this. The story's not coming out the way I want, and you can really clean things up. I'll do that with the forwards and the, the book cover jackets and those kind of things too.
That is really good advice. I've heard that several times, and it really does make a difference when you're saying it out loud. You just hear things differently. You hear the awkwardness.
Either the awkwardness, or all of a sudden you're saying words that aren't on the page.
Yeah.
Like that happens to me too.
So I have to ask, have you read your books or your columns again since they've been published, like a year or two out? Have you ever read them again? And what did you think when you read through them?
So some of the chapters I have, I've done a lot of events in Wisconsin. What have I thought of them? Some of them, I had a mentor, Steve Larson, who was my supervisor for many years. Every author, every editor, you could rework an article, column, or a chapter continuously, but at some point it has to be done. Most of them, I was like, wow, I wrote that. Sometimes you got to be inspired. I've some of the I keep calling them columns because they started at columns in the newspaper. Then I reworked the whole thing. I put them in order, and then I had to start over and read it like a book. So then they had to get edited a whole completely different way. But one of the things I did for a lot of these people, if they were characters from the past, I would take a 5-gallon bucket from my farm. I'd find their gravestones at the cemetery if it was a nice day, and I'd already have the article or chapter kind of done, but I'd sit there and look at their gravestone. I'd just be in a moment, and I would write. Some people would see me in a cemetery and what the heck's that guy doing, before they knew that when I was, going to write a book about that. And I don't know, part of that just brings you into a quiet space, into the presence of what you're writing about too. So little unique, maybe a little quirky, but that's me.
I like that. Well, we already know you're unique and quirky. So, you talked a little bit about your muses already. I think it sounds like nature and Harley riding and those quiet tasks around the farm that kind of get you kind of thinking when you're stuck. Do you have any other, things that you kind of would regard as your biggest inspirations?
Mhm. I am, every author is different. I am not afraid to put my book chapters out for review. I wrote in 1949, my grandpa bought his first tractor, and Alice Chalmers, an iconic Wisconsin company that at one point had 20,000 people working there. At one point, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, came through there in 1942 unannounced when he was doing his 30-day tour of the United States to see if we were getting ready to turn the tide of World War II. So there, I'm writing about Alice Chalmers, the love of Alice and the death of Alice. So I talk about the rise of it and its demise in 1986, almost an American tragedy, quite honestly. And I sent it out to my friend who works at Rob Ripshin, who works for John Deere, and he said, "You're an economist. Tell me what they did wrong." So that's part of being vulnerable too. Sometimes we think we might have all the answers. And I went back and did more research. I think I started talking about my cemetery walks. When I was a young boy at age 12, there was a fellow, I just knew him as Petey. He was a little short fellow, 5'4", happiest guy in the world. And we had two little ferocious dogs on our farm, Teddy and Snoopy. And they would bark at everybody, chase salespeople off the farm. But when he came there, he would jiggle his pockets and those dogs would just sit there. And I'm like, "Petey, why are those dogs?" And he'd give them up. One would get a butterscotch and one would get a root beer barrel candy. And it's a 12-year-old inquisitive boy, not knowing any better. And I go, "How'd you get to be so good with dogs?" And he goes, "I had to." "Why?" Well, as it turns out, he's on the last kinder train out of Poland, and eventually gets to London, gets to New York. A childless couple from Milwaukee gets there, adopts him. His adoptive father is a cattle jockey, and all because of a cow. He comes to our farm. He's buying cows to go to stockyards to become the second career hamburger. And I bring history to life by asking him questions. And he actually comes to my Catholic grade school and talks about some Catholic nuns stitched up his bullet hole. He had been shot and put him on that train. Well, I wanted to write a story. It's not in either of my books yet because I got a third book I want to work on. It's kind of a grouping of unique war stories. So I go find his obituary at the Milwaukee Public Library. And then I'm like, I'm still hesitant to write about Petey. And I find out where he's buried in Cudahy next to the General Mitchell Airport. And I get there and there's 40 acres of gravestones. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I look up and I'm like, what am I doing? I look up over and the first gravestone I see is Petey Pincus Markowitz. Birth date, death date match. I have no map of this cemetery. And I just looked up to the heavens and smiled and I sat down and wrote the story. So sometimes as an editor, author, something's got to push you. It's either another person, something divine. And I've had some of those unique moments too.
I think we call that serendipity. What you just
Serendipity.
encountered there. Very nice. All right, let's move on to Luella's favorite topic.
That's right. We love the special sauce question, Corey, because, we want to know more about our guests that are other than just their writing careers. And you've shared a lot about your life other than just your writing. But, what do you got for us for a special sauce?
Special sauce is listening to others. And all of us don't do it enough. But when I come across people, their stories can get woven into at least the books I write. I think that's a special sauce. I spend a lot of time researching the why into this, but ultimately for me, my special sauce was when the books I thought were near the finish line and I tried to get the manuscripts done 30 days. I put them out to about 8 people I trusted in different areas and just let them, and I gave them printed copies. I put them in the binder, just mark them up for me. and it makes the book better. It being ahead of schedule allows to clean up all those little things. My second book, and I'm really, now people are going to probably go try to find something. I haven't had a correction to submit to the publisher because that special sauce was setting a timeline and meeting the benchmarks. It's not easy. I get it, but for me, that's pretty important, especially when you're talking about nonfiction and history and those kind of things.
I think listening makes a lot of sense. I mean, active listening is a skill not everybody has. A lot of us by nature are thinking about what we want to say next when somebody's talking. That's especially hard when we're podcast hosts, right, Ken? Like because we have to
Yep.
kind of be ready. So active listening is something you can practice. And I really imagine your stories in particular make people feel, seen and heard, their way of life and their memories and stuff like that is very special.
And when I left towards Dairyman, some of my coworkers, they know I'm a journal like type person, and they went and got these journals with my name on it because at my desk, I have, since I started my career, it could be, they're just chronological. If people haven't figured out I'm a little bit chronological or linear sometimes instead of more cloud-based thinking, but I often still, they're all by year, and I pull those off once in a while, and I'll remember a meeting or something somebody said, and it sparks a whole nother thought process that I can weave into a book. So those are very important to me. They may not be important to anyone else, but for me, they've been a treasure for me.
And I do want to mark this day as the first time we've ever heard the term cloud-based thinking on this show, Luella. So significant milestone crossed there. All right, Corey, tell us, where can our listeners, our viewers find you?
So I have a website by my name, corygeiger.com, and I keep a lot of information on there about my books. I also have a pretty active Facebook page. I have a personal page and an author page that I track things on as well. And so those are two ways to find me. And I try to also go to quite a few bookstores throughout the year or two and visit people. So one of the things I did during the pandemic, I visited every bookstore in the state of Wisconsin at IndieMap. I'm a rookie author. Now we got the pandemic, and I went out and hustled. And I signed the books at those stores and just to make them a little more special.
That's really cool. What a great,
That is
what a good
very
use
impressive.
during a
Took a
downtime.
while. You can't do it all in
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
I mean, how
Obviously.
long did it take you to hit them all? Do you
It
remember?
took me about a year. And what I would do,
Yeah.
I'd go make little groupings. If I go on to Milwaukee, I'd go visit all those. And then some of the driftless area, you kind of put them in groups. Then there's a lot of beautiful bookstores when you get up to Lake Superior in that area. For
Yeah.
me, cheese shops have been a great spot because if you want to buy local product, you might want to hear about farming. And so some of those have never carried books, and you kind of got to convince them that they'll sell. And some have done very well with them. And then I looked at this from a dairy perspective, and I have a map of where all the cows are. So there's a lot of cows along Wisconsin's borders. So I'd go to Minnesota and Iowa and Illinois and the Upper Peninsula as well and make connections there.
That's serious hustling.
It is all hustle. My wife would come along with me in that. She loves adventure. And so she's been a partner in this whole journey.
I
I
think
love
we
it.
call that a great ground game on your part.
Yes.
All right, time to turn our attention to some good news.
That's right, listeners. We want to celebrate your good news with you. So please email us podcast@wiwrite.org. Ken, what do you got today for good news?
So we're recording this on Friday, the Friday before Labor Day weekend, right? And this is probably one of my favorite times. We're ending summer, getting towards fall, which is my favorite season. I got a golf game with my youngest son after this. We've got friends and family. We'll have probably 12, 15 people in the house showing up. All the family will be here, get the pontoon and the jet skis out on the lake, maybe one last time. There's the neighborhood end of the year picnic on the nearby lake where they have live music and food and all that. And this is one of my favorite weekends of the year. So I'm happy, I'm
Yay.
excited, and I'm floating today.
I'm happy to hear that, Ken. Good for you.
Oh, thank you. Corey, what do you got for good news for us?
I got a couple quick ones. The farmer in me, when you look out at the corn and soybean crop, it's beautiful. One of the best that I've seen in my lifetime.
Can I
But
just echo that? Man, that corn is gorgeous this year.
it's almost
It is
artwork.
really something.
It's almost artwork. 2 weeks ago, my niece, Mary Zwald, showed a calf at the Dodge County Fair. And if you take a direct linear line, so 10 generations ago on those calves and cows, in 1981, I took the 10th generation descendant to the Manitowoc County Fair. So that was kind of a special moment. And then the craziest thing happened on Monday, August 25th. I was boarding a flight. I was in my seat, a flight from Milwaukee to Denver. And a lady looked at me and said, Corey. And I said, Nurse Tessa. And we just stood up and hugged each other. We met 6 years ago to the day when my dad spent 18 days in Aurora St. When my dad spent 18 days at Aurora St. Luke's Medical Center, while he passed away from complications to a heart attack. She was one of the people there that just brought life and brevity into a tough situation, and our family nominated her for a Daisy Award for excellence in nursing. And we hadn't seen each other in 6 years, and it was just like poof, we were back in the moment. And what a wonderful person. And I smiled big that day, because losing a parent's tough, right?
That's the definition of good news. It's gonna be tough to top that one, Luella, but give it a shot. I know you've got some good news for us.
You guys, my good news is so the opposite of what you guys have, and it involves a label maker, which I purchased. As you may have remember, I moved recently, and yesterday I took everything out of our linen closet and reorganized it, and it all has cute little labels on it. So, that's my good news.
Are you for hire? Because
have
we moved.
community and love, and I've got organization.
Are you for hire? We moved 4 weeks ago, and we're not done unpacking.
Oh boy. Well, I got to do the basement yet. So this was my last task up here in the main level before I got to hit the basement and get all that going. And so maybe after that, Corey, we'll stay in touch.
So there's this Facebook group out there called Dull Men's Club, right? And they just celebrate all the dull type thing. Right now, Luella, you are the poster child for that group. They would love you to see all your labels.
That's right. I'm gonna send you a picture after this, Ken, so you can see all of it. It's very beautiful.
Yes. When I was in high school, for I think it was art class, where they did that. They had a Dymo label, and you're supposed to label where you kept your supplies. Well, I just printed out a ton of labels that said mine. I plastered them everywhere. Everything said mine, mine, mine. There's no name. I just kept claiming everything as mine. I spent the entire day doing that. The teacher did not seem to be as amused as I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, I made it into a dance party. So there was a dance party during the organization of the closet, and then there was a slight dance party after it was done to celebrate it being done. So, there's magic in the mundane if you choose to. So, listeners, as you can tell, we love any kind of good news. If you want to send it to us, it's podcast@wiwrite.org. Ken and I would love to hear from you and give you a shout out.
So I want to thank Corey for joining us today on the podcast here. I think this guy is built of nothing but special sauce, Luella. That's kind of what I've come to listening to Corey, is you are nothing but a big jar of special sauce, because you got a lot of varied interests. What a great, great guest you've been. Listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star rating in your podcast app of choice. This is the type of action that helps everybody else find us. Thanks for hanging out in the Midwest Writers Room with us. I'm Ken Humphrey.
And I'm Luella Schmidt. Words ignite imaginations and spark change. Never underestimate the power of storytelling.
Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Writing and editing by Luella Schmidt and Ken Humphrey. Sound design and editing by Ken Humphrey. Music for the Midwest Writers Room was written by Michael Ramirez C. For more information, please visit wiwrite.org/podcast. Thank you.